This video was made possible by Ecosia. Start using the search engine that plants trees with every search you make at ecosia.co/HAI. Monkey see, monkey do, baboon see, baboon control a railway used by multi-ton trains and thousands of passengers. That's how it worked in the late 1800s in South Africa. Back in the old days, radios didn't exist, and since trains were loud, you couldn't just shout at a driver to tell them what to do. Therefore, in the late 1800s, signals were developed as a way to tell incoming trains to stations what to do. At first, lanterns and hand signals were used by signalmen to convey the information needed, but as technology advanced, signals that could be controlled by switches and levers were installed to ease the process. These signals were similar to weather vanes in that they consisted of fixed posts with movable discs or signage that could be controlled via a switch. Various colors meant to stop or go or proceed with caution, and there were other vanes on different axes to indicate which tracks to pull into once arriving at the station, and various other signs meaning to take it to the left, right, to crisscross, to cha-cha now, to cha-cha again, and for everyone to clap their hands. With the world going loco for locomotives at the time, tons and tons of signalmen were needed to ensure that the trains stuck to schedules, were in working condition, and stuck to the proper tracks. Signalmen, as their names imply, were also responsible for operating the levers that would set off the signals for the trains out of the signal house. In the 1870s, one of the signalmen for the Cape Town to Port Elizabeth Mainland Railroad in South Africa was a man named James Wild. Wild went by the nickname Jumper because he had a habit of jumping between the cars that would pass on the tracks, and in a totally unforeseen and completely unpreventable twist of fate, Jumper once jumped from a moving rail car and fell under it, losing both of his legs in the process. After this, Jumper continued working, hobbling around on a pair of peg legs, although he found himself limited in his ability to signal trains proficiently. Not having legs does that. One day at the market, though, Jumper came across a Chacma baboon who'd been trained to lead an ox-drawn wagon. Though impressive, its intelligence isn't particularly surprising by today's standards. We now know that baboons aren't so different from humans in their brain capacity. Baboons can keep schedules, communicate with their own language, differentiate between scribbles and the written word, and the University of Rochester recently concluded that baboons are actually capable of counting to an extent, although I'm not sure what all the fuss is about since I've been able to do that since at least I was 1 or 12-teen. Jumper begged and finally convinced the owner to let him take the baboon, and thus the prodigious primate pair was born. The original owner warned Jumper, however, that the baboon would refuse to work unless he had been given plenty of brandy to drink. They're really just like us. The baboon, named Jack, was first taught to observe and then respond to certain commands. When Jumper would hold up a certain number of fingers, Jack was to pull the corresponding lever. From there, Jack learned that the trains were giving similar orders by the number of blats from their whistle. Over time, Jack realized on his own which tracks needed which signals and would double-check his own work as he was doing it. He also realized that conductors needed access to the coal sheds and would retrieve the key from Jumper unbidden to give to the incoming engineers. Now, if your job is replaceable by a monkey, you really shouldn't be expecting much job security, so surprise surprise, both Jack and Jumper's jobs eventually came under threat. Jack was a beloved fixture of the railroad until some snobby high society aristocrat noticed that he was, in fact, a monkey and narked on the pair. The bosses at the railway were aware that Jumper had found an assistant, but were totally in the dark about his baboonness. After the Cape Town executives launched an investigation, they found out the truth about the monkey business. So, naturally, they tried to fire both Jumper and Jack. Jumper begged to demonstrate Jack's cleverness, and so the rail managers agreed to put him to the test. Jack perfectly performed his signaling abilities, even checking both directions to make sure that the incoming trains were headed to separate tracks at the station. They were so impressed that they made Jack an official employee, paying him 20 cents a day and half a bottle of beer every week. It's been said that in the 9 years Jack worked as a signalman, he never made a single mistake despite being constantly drunk and a monkey. Jack became known as Jack the Signalman and worked and lived with Jumper in a small cottage not far from that signal house. He stayed there and worked for the railroad up until his death from tuberculosis in 1890, and his skull is now displayed at a museum in Grahamstown, South Africa, not far from where he worked. Monkeys can do a lot, like play the violin, ride bicycles, roller skate, but what they can't do is stop the systematic and widespread deforestation of their natural habitat. Luckily, you can, and you don't even have to spend any money or effort to do it. Ecosia is a non-profit search engine that uses the money generated from advertising to reforest areas, including places like Tanzania, Ethiopia, and Burkina Faso where there are native baboons. It only takes about 50 searches to plant one tree, so you can really easily make a difference. Head to ecosia.co/HAI to add it to your browser so you can start planting trees one surge